number 3, picks and bans. Warriors will be doing do-si-do. They're going over to the first pick. I don't know why. Now I feel like I need to keep up dance references. As they tango their way over to first pick. Baba Yaga stays true as a ban. So does Thor and Hebo on the other side from the Leviathans. This has been Hebo Aphrodite very consistently from the Levi's. Horus was on that list in game number 1. Nox was on that list in game number 2. Nox will take that place early on. Any adaptations you want to see here? Well, we're getting the Mercury, so maybe taking that away from Panatom, making sure that adapting doesn't get it.
Yeah, I don't think I mind just playing the Oni Warriors' different style of draft. I don't think that Sot goes back to mages, I would hope. I know that Pagon just likes playing hunters here. The Morgan is great because she can be not a mage, but Merlin is always a mage, and I just wasn't a fan. We'll see if it's able to make some adaptations, but it looks like I'm grabbing Hercules here. That's the adaptation. If I'm honest, that's the pick I would go for. You have the Horus option as well to try and take it away, but I'm thinking...
You dare challenge
yeah, I guess the Horus is also extremely valuable because of the healing, but you got to grab one, which means the Leviathans have a couple seconds to decide if they want to grab the Herc. If they don't, I'd be a little questionable about it. I think that it's just a really great option here for the Leviathans in the top 2. And they could also grab Marty. Marty Herc would be a sick top 2 here.
Arise, my child!
Well, what if neither of those were right there? And instead it was a Tiamat, Kurnanos. So, Trelly, I couldn't help but notice you had a dartboard. Honestly, I think you hit 2 bullseye on things that would have been a very, very good pickup. Repetitive, maybe, but gives you a lot of the power that you maybe had in game 1. And I think you, at least in my mind, maybe you're just thinking, okay, well, now you just pick up Hercules and potentially Marty for the Warriors. Do you like that maybe with a combo of Horus? Do you just like them in general?
Well, I think what happened with the Leviathans is we got to watch that last game, but we didn't get to play it. And from Zapman's point of view, I'm sure he was thinking, guys, we are up by so much, but we cannot kill this darn fire giant because I don't do damage to it. So that's the idea, right? They're saying we need crit. There's just no way we're playing again. We need to be able to kill this fire giant, and so that's why the CERN is locked in. The Oni Warriors are going to grab Merlin and Ishtar. I hope this is just traditional. I hope they just go back to basics here. Send Merlin into mid lane, let Netroid take the Ishtar, and just play the Oni Warriors style of draft. This makes a lot more sense, but that Hercules pick is going to go the whole way through. So it seems like if you diversify your damage and you don't stack so much fizz, Herc is not as strong, right? If he can't build the mid guard, the spectral, the regrowth, all that physical defense, he doesn't get to have the field day that he does in the back line. So far, you got the Horus, you got the Ishtar, you already have some decent amounts of shred for that protections. But I'm thinking a traditional solo laner, they've got the mage, throw it over to Pagon, play your normal random Smite.
Well, there's only been a few games this week where Hercules has gone ignored. A lot of the time banned in the top 3, if not banned in the top 3. He's been picked up pretty quickly. But it is going to be the Vimana here. And actually, looking back on it, game 1 this set, as I think one of the only, if not the only, Hercules not banned in the top 6, not picked in the top 6 that we've had all week so far. And after the performance he just had?
Yeah, I'm very interested in this Vimana pick just because, again, we talked about it before. Adapting has been leaning on this pick a ton, right? He's been going to the Vimana jungle. I'm guessing it's hard to mess up. You just go Golden Blade, you farm quickly. You go to the back line, you stompa. It doesn't do amazing into most mobile picks, but you can farm quick and you can sort of lean on your team to do the rest. But I just think, given the matchup prior, prioritizing the Hercules, giving Final Case something that he could be an absolute monster on in the back line, and also there's a ton of CC picks that I think that Adapting could have went to here, but the Leviathans clearly have a draft. They have a plan. And rather than changing it up in the middle of a 3-game set, which could have, dire consequences, they just want to stick with their idea and try and execute, because I'm not thinking the Vamana pick was the best to run away, but they've got options, and I suppose Merlin isn't as mobile as other mages, right? You could still run him down with Colossal Fury. The Flicker does not get you that far away.
Bans come through for the second phase. Bakasura, Fenrir, taken out by the Leviathans, as you said if you were watching Panatom during kickoff, which outside of the last 2 games are the only times that we've really gotten to see what he has to offer, at least for this year. Then yeah, you'd be a little worried about this too. I think those are some very prominent picks. Other side, Ganesh and Maui. So showcases that Jake maybe doesn't want to go back to that. Is Susano locked in? And Trelly, here's the question. It's assuming jungle, right?
Yeah. I like this a lot better. If this was the plan, say, hey, maybe we'll bait out some solo bans, or in this case, the only Warriors didn't fall for it. They just banned support regardless, so it's not like it worked in that regard. But the Susano has a much easier time just blowing up the backline. You don't have to rely on the Vamana ultimate for your team fight. Fine, okay, he can still be that annoyance. He can still build extremely tanky. He's not going to bring in those kills like this Hercules might do on the side of the Warriors, but they did use it as a flex. So I suppose their team fight can be crazy. And the Serket comes back. This is what I was hoping for. So now, this is an interesting draft once again, because you got to assume the Serket goes over to jungle, so I suppose it's just either Herc solo Horus. Yeah, probably just Jake on the Horus, and then SFT takes the Hercules. And you
the
finally
most
have
standard thing we've seen them play.
Yeah, and that's what confused me, is the fact that it was standard. I was
It's
like,
just like a normal draft.
I was like, wait a second, how is
what alternate timeline is this?
How is Pagon gonna somehow take this Serket? Something like that. But nope, seems pretty standard, and it looks like they're just trying to go back to the drawing board here for the Oni Warriors. They definitely, I'm not gonna say troll. They tried something new and didn't quite work out in game number 2.
How do you feel about the Khepri? I feel like we've seen a lot of Khepri picks in the past, and in the right hands, the right moments, I mean, that res has been quite literally game-ending for a lot of teams, right? All of a sudden, you kill Vamana. Oh, no, you didn't. You actually have a 6th person that you have to burn through now. We've also seen the opposite be true, right? Where the Khepri now is just the target at the very beginning.
Yep.
Like, cool, we're going to force you to use it on yourself. Does it fit well into the Leviathans draft? And maybe more importantly, do the Warriors have a good way to deal with it?
I do think that the Khepri fits well here. You can send in Susano. If Tiamat starts to get dove by the Serket, you can negate just one ultimate, which is pretty key here because they have a lot of single target damage. It's not like, Horus can CC the whole team. Hercules is going to be usually pulling one person. You can pull multiple, but more often than not, it's a single target pull. And of course, Serket can only really get that ultimate off on one target unless she gets that kill and it starts spreading. So I think the Khepri can be extremely impactful, but the way I see it, whenever I'm casting Khepri, you either have 6 members of your team or you have 4. If Khepri does not get that ult off, there is very little value that character can actually bring to the table. So if you're looking at the end of a fight and Khepri still has ult and they lost and they're retreating, they had 4 members that fight. He wasn't able to help out. But a key ultimate can completely change the game. So it's all about who's piloting it. In this case, you got to give the respect to Rong Yu.
Yep.
He's earned it. He's one of the best supports in the league for a reason. I'm thinking he'll be just fine.
Well, it's definitely going to create the conversation, right? Depending on how we see it, sometimes you get burned too quickly, and that's maybe half of this. We saw what the Serket can do, some good anti-heal, but then you factor that in with some prot shred that comes from the Horus, you factor in Merlin's burn damage. I think if you're looking to just kill faster than Khepri can react, the Warriors might have the opportunity.
Yeah, they certainly do. I think more specifically, they also have the CC to make Rong Yu's life miserable, because it's one thing to just say, hey, we killed too quick, Khepri wasn't ready. It's another thing to say, hey, Khepri was knocked up, he was in the air, he was stunned while we killed your carries, and then he couldn't do anything. So you're either forcing a beads pickup or you're making sure Rong Yu has to stay way in the back of the team fight so he can never get close.
Knocked up, stunned, mezzed, stunned again, taunted, pulled back. Like, I mean, there's a serious chain of CC they can throw to keep him locked down. Again, 1-1 Warriors kickoff winners. Leviathans, they played once earlier this week. They lost to the Ravens. They're trying to find their win here. We'll find out if they can do it in Game 3.
Thanks so much, Go on the desk. Yes, it's time for Game 3, and a bit more of a traditional composition here, J-Mac, for the Oni Warriors. They've kind of been testing people's limits, I would say, throughout the kickoff LAN and then going into this year. But right now, looking at it, it's a bit more traditional from them.
Which is really odd to say for the Oni Warriors because they're not a traditional play style of team coming to the SPL, but this is something I really did want to see, especially from Sot more than anybody, was get off the carries, get off the mages. Sot was performing his best when he was the I'm W keying your backline, I am in your face, I am this warrior that is absolutely unkillable and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't do that when you're a Merlin who's behind facing off against another warrior who's already doing that. So that adaptation from the Warriors, honestly, maybe surprisingly that the Leviathans gave this one up considering how good Final K did. This is one adaptation the Warriors needed to make, and it's probably the easiest and best one they could do.
Sure, I think it was definitely a flex option with the Vamana, even yesterday. I think we're seeing adapting playing in the jungle, go for the crit option. We saw a lot of success today with Vamana earlier on. I feel specifically Haddix did a very good job on that Vamana earlier and caused a lot of problems. So a bit more of a traditional situation here. In the jungle though, Blink online for Panitom early gives me ideas that he's going to get aggressive in this early stage, whereas Adapting gone for the beads to deal with it. Adapt's actually getting very low over there on that right-hand side, a little bit lower than I expected, funny enough, in the jungle there. Looks like a bit of a miscommunication on buffs there. You don't want to be that low, forced to use as many potions, but they'll be fine. You know, he's not going to be ganking anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm wondering what the real benefit of the Leviathans is because they're doing speed buff for Shinto, giving him that one as opposed to red. I guess maybe it's a timers thing that they're able to pick up the red pretty quickly after. They're just giving up so much early damage and pressure that Shinto could have if he had a red buff for his name. You're also denying that extra little bit of speed that Adapting could pick up if he wants to make a rotation to the other side of the map. It's curious on the start for the Leviathans, but hasn't slowed them down.
He looks at Shinto straight away. Shinto fine. Doesn't beads, doesn't have to. Kiss comes out though from Panitom towards Adapting, and Adapting does have to beads away from that one. So early pressure for the Warriors in this mid lane, and some of that definitely comes off the start. Over in the solo lane, SOT would need that driving strike relatively soon. It goes to a little bit of a cheeky Earthbreaker, but Final K read it and keeps the pressure rolling in the solo lane for the time being.
This is the easiest pressure that you need to get right now is keep SOT a bit behind. You saw what happened last game when a little bit of pressure is thrown. Granted, that was a Merlin, much easier to shut down, a little bit easier to kill, but we've also seen what Final K can do on the Hercules in last game. If SOT can get to relatively the same kind of build pathing, maybe not exactly in line, you're not dealing with the triple crit anymore, or at least the double ADC plus a critting jungler, so you don't need to prioritize as much physical damage. But for SOT, making sure to get that early, he can double dip into physical defense because he's going up against Adapting and Final K, both on physical-based gods.
Aggression in the dual lane as well, as you see Jake getting pulled by Wrong-Yu there away from Zapman as he was charging in, looking for the stun in that dual lane. Not touched on it too much so far, J-Mac, in this series, but obviously Panitom playing against a lot of his former teammates today. Specifically for me, that stands out is Shinto, considering that duo has been in the Pro League together forever. It doesn't surprise me that when we see him on the circuit now, he is trying to keep Shinto honest in this mid lane, keep him pinned back, and probably annoying him more than, you know, Shinto likes, knowing Shinto's playstyle.
Feels maybe like it's a bit of a payback at him for the amount of farm that Shinto has taken from Panitom over the course of the years. Now Panitom's trying to take some of that back from Shinto, going up against him this time. Obviously a little bit of blood kind of across the board for some of these players, but Panitom with the blue buff invade should be easy. Adapting too late to the rotation, and this is one way to try and keep the solo down, deny Final K some XP, deny him his buff.
Yeah, more importantly, the buff. We know Vamana's costs of those abilities are pretty significant in the early stages of the game. One of the reasons you see him go towards that Golden Blade a little bit more is because he can potentially clear the wave more effectively without wasting all his mana here. But Jake at level 4 now going to come back to lane. Same for Netrioid, who's working towards that Bloodforge once more. The base timings have definitely changed over the past year or so, at least this season, in terms of when you have to base, just based off the fact some of your items are a little bit more expensive, like Bloodforge. Takes a little bit longer to farm, and you can't stay there all day waiting to get to the max gold.
Things are a bit more expensive. You lost out on some of the kind of free gold in the jungle as well. Remember, there's no more obelisks like we had last season, which was a great option for gold. The greater scorpions have been taken away, so a lot of the neutral farm in the jungle comes from these smaller roaming harpies that move through, but even those aren't worth a whole lot of gold and XP. Comparatively, it's mostly just that extra camp to give you something to do. So because of that, a lot of your gold is going to be coming from these waves by taking down those buff camps. That Cyclops camp as well is going to be offering a little bit. That's where the primary bulk of your early game gold comes from. So because of that, it has slowed things down.
Problem for SOT, just driving Strux and Adapting was waiting in the jungle there too. The all-in combination of the two ultimates combined, and SOT's just trying to buy time for a rotation. He gets one from Paniton, but FineOK will slam the umbrella down for first blood in the solo lane and adapt him back to what he's done for years before, camping solos and finding kills.
That's how they kept SOT down in game 1. That's how I kept him down in game 2. Lather, rinse, repeat for adapting. Getting it a little bit earlier on as well with the Susano. Giving the kill to FineOK is great because that's going to expedite FineOK in that lane. Give him a little bit of extra pressure over there. Get his build online just a bit faster. But now Shinto in danger.
Didn't read the book. He didn't know Paddington was waiting around. The poison is on him. It would just have needed that Frostbolt from Pagan for the kill. Shinto will survive, but he's going to give up a whole wave of farm in the mid lane. Adapting will be there to pick up the crumbs, though, and get a bit more XP for himself, but he won't be able to prevent the Bastions going down as Pagan, and specifically Merlin, very good at shredding those down quickly and getting some easy gold.
Only saving grace there for Shinto. Well, 2 saving graces for him. Missed Frostbolt from Pagan, and going into that quadrupedal stance to get just a little bit tankier to mute some of that damage from the Zerkhead ultimate.
SOT trying to run away now from the chase from Adapting and FineOK. Umbrella rang off the mark, but the route not from Rongu. Has the Abduct too to follow up, but FineOK kind of went to the Harpies and gave up the goose there a little bit on the chase. And it gave him a window for SOT just to walk away. Could have fallen, but there wasn't more than that to speak of.
I think they were maybe trying to buy a little bit extra time for Adapting's ultimate. It was just a few seconds from coming back online, but because FineOK does give up the chase, SOT is able to walk out. Attempted invade at the green buff for Jake, but unable to do so because Shinto and Rongu are standing by there. We're going to be keeping eyes at least on the support builds. Last time around, we saw Rongu go for very heavy physical defense against the composition. Now that's a bit more scattered across the damage charts there. I would imagine, actually, it's even less so than it was last game. You had a Maui, you had a Merlin to go up against, you had a little bit of, just a little bit of magical. But for now, Rongu going into the Gauntlet of Thieves, he's going to get the free procs early on. That honestly might be enough magical defense until, I would say, 4th item or so for Rongu. If it gets that late in the build, this point onward, I'd be keeping eyes on Netroid, seeing if he's going towards crit. If so, Spectral would be a great item for him. If not, getting something like a Sovereignty or even some other physical defense would be great to try and slow down this Warriors team.
And across the way, awesome Jake playing the Horus here. Prophetic Cloak online and stacking up. He's going to be so aggressive this game. He will get those stacks. Speaking of aggression, it's all in on SOT once more. He wants to play a warrior in the solo lane. They're like, you know what? We didn't camp Merlin this hard, but we'll camp a Hercules this hard. And in doing so, they're just giving FineOK more dominance in this lane. It's going to cause a problem when this Vamana does hit the teamfight stage once again, because there's no one that's going to really be able to prevent it with the lead that he's probably going to develop. Teleport from FineOK to mid lane. 3 members already there from the Leviathans too. It was a kind of a sign for me that maybe they look at the Gold Fury. But with Paniton on his left-hand side keeping Zapman back, pressure has been relieved, and I don't know if they actually saw that TP, so Leviathans might be able to get away with that for the time being, not knowing that's on cooldown.
Pagan might have just been far enough out of range to not see FineOK dash across the lane as well. Definitely when you see your solo laner rotate to that side, you're saying, okay, we're setting up for gold, or we're trying to find a pick and duo lane. Maybe they were trying to find a kill onto Pagan instead because he was there, but Adapting has not.
He needs a tent, dude. Like, SOT is not going to enjoy this once more. Big Baby online, ultimate channeled. SOT uses his ult to try and avoid some of the CC chains that come through, but Adapting with another kill, his first of the game, I should say, as they continue to keep the pressure rolling on SOT, and no sign of Paniton. Do you send Paniton here, J-Mac? Do you try and have him rotate to help? Or you just go, you know what, dude? You're on your own.
At this point, if I'm Paniton, I'm saying, bro, you're on your own. Deal with that lane the best you can. Your defense is starting to come online for SOT because you go Golden Blade so early on so many of these warriors. You don't have that tankiness. Once that breastplate gets online, SOT should be fine in that lane for a little while. But I want to see Paniton get active somewhere on the map. You can't just let SOT get camped the entire time and then not do anything in response.
In fairness, we have seen him try and look at Zapman a couple of times, but you know, Zap's played it relatively safe there. Same time, it definitely makes it more awkward as time goes on, though, to work out where does he go next for kills, potentially. I mean, Paniton, he's going to be useful in the team fights, let's be honest. I mean, that Circuit is going to shut a lot of people down, will prevent some cause some problems for the Leviathans, but at the moment, he just can't seem to find an avenue.
Anytime I see Horus plus other god with good CC in their kit, I'm thinking those are the two that need to be deathballing down whichever lane they want to find a pick. Their easiest option is going for Zatman. Take his beads. Cernos has nothing beyond there. He has an ultimate to drop at his feet, but all Panatom has to do is jump on top of his head with that last breath to immune, or at least get away from the majority of that damage there. So I'd like to see some pressure put on the left side.
Rongu under a bit of pressure here. Will Root gets hit by the ult from Panatom as Pagon's there for backup, but with Merlin, not a whole ton of damage to be found. Jake trading with Adapted in mid to keep him out of the flame, just trying to find some stacks. With the ultimate consumed by Panatom there, another window now for Leviathans to maybe look to get aggressive. The lead so far is all in the solo lane and jungle based off where the kills have gone.
When Warriors can heal themselves back up and now run as a 3-man death ball, but man, I don't think the mid lane is the option to go towards. Shinto's so difficult to lock down the Tiamat, has that leap to get away, has the ultimate for CC immunity as well, can get a little bit of extra protections from there. I'd like to see pressure put on Zatman, though you go back in time and think, oh, that's the Zatman passive, you want to keep him down, but if you can keep your crit hunter from getting his crit online, you slow down the objective potential on the opposite side, and you make it that much easier for yourself. Plus, you have an Ishtar. Ishtar is one of the best boxers you can have in the game to try and fight, especially if Cernos doesn't have beads.
Quick pause coming out here from the Leviathans at the moment as we take care of that. We can kind of review the scene 1-1 so far in this game. Honestly, looking at coming into this today, I wasn't sure what we'd get, J-Mac, because Oni Warriors won the kickoff tournament and Leviathans lost yesterday to the Ravens, who a lot of people would have expected Leviathans to maybe do better against. So Leviathans were on the back foot coming in today, and after game one, I was like, well, this could be a swift 2-0 in the Oni Warriors' favor. Not to be, though.
After yesterday, the question, at least around the Ravens, was that kind of a fluke? Because they did find kind of a miracle comeback at the end of game number one, kind of then brought the momentum to themselves. So was it just a fluke by the Leviathans, maybe just kind of floundering there? Because the Ravens weren't necessarily seen as one of the top teams after their early exit from the kickoff compared to the Oni Warriors, who were the dominant force. They only dropped a single game during the entirety of that kickoff land. So coming back and seeing a team that can pump the brakes against the Oni Warriors gives a little bit of light to the rest of the league. It lets them know that, one, the Oni Warriors can bleed, but two, there is a way to slow this team down. If you can put some pressure on Sot, who's typically the one who wants to get that momentum going for their team, because he's one of the most aggressive soul laners we have in the league, one of the best mechanical soul laners that has at least been heralded as well over there. So if you can at least keep SOT down a little bit, make sure he doesn't have a fun time in that lane, as we're seeing now, game 3 of the set, third time they're still camping SOT. This is a great way for Leviathans to get this started.
Definitely a good situation for Leviathans fans to be in, though. Looking at the state of affairs so far in this third game, just over 10 minutes now, and it's about a 1,500 to 2k gold lead in favor of the Leviathans at the moment. And so far, so good for Fine OK. I say that as Panatom just showed his face over here, but he didn't think about going in at all. Just walks away as Fine OK has a 2-level lead so far over SOT.
Okay, can just keep bullying SOT, poke him out. SOT can heal up, kind of fight back to Final K, but you can't really take trades whenever Colossal Fury is up, because that shielding for Final K just makes it so hard to kill him.
That was like two Thanatoses in the jungle there, just meeting. They both sensed blood when they saw the health bars and were like, oh, I've got my my passive is activated, I'm going to gank. But as they met in the jungle, it forced them both to fall back. And with that, SOT returns to base. He will be back to lane, but I don't know if that tower is going to be alive. It's going to be very low once he gets there. It's adapting, sorry, not adapting, I should say. Panatom left the farm for SOT over there, but that tower will now fall.
Biggest concern that came up on the desk, at least with Trelly, was this Khepri pick, and Wrong used the one to keep eyes on
Trelly
for
was
the Leviathan.
So offensive about that.
He
Khepri,
really
by
was,
the way.
man.
I was like,
you're
wait,
either
what?
a 4-man team or a 6-man team was the way that you put it with a Khepri. I agree, maybe not to the extremities, because there's a lot that Khepri has outside of that revive. You've got a great initiation to go in, pull those targets back. You've got good range lockdown. Plus, people sometimes forget the damage mitigation that you get from that Rising Dawn can come in so clutch during team fights. Not often we get moments to really sing the praises of that ability, but there's so much utility to Wrong You. Ultimate, obviously the biggest factor, being able to bring somebody back to life. But 30% damage mitigation on a buff target for 3 seconds? That's nuts.
Trelly's a Khepri hater. That's all I learned today. See, look at what he just did there. That Abduct silences, keeps him in place, and is a great pickup too Hopefully Kepri wins just so, you know, Trelly gets upset. That's what I'm hoping.
Oh, wrong. He doesn't need to ult once.
But the real question is, where does the mid farm go to? And at the moment, left-hand side of that team does find it, but does get Kiss, and Beads is late here in the engagement. The ult for ult exchanges, and Adapting loses the battle. Not in the 1v1, it wasn't technically a 3v1 at the end of the day there, and poor old Rongu couldn't get in range for that ultimate, unfortunately, due to the wide shoulder caps on that area around the green buff. So small little pickle there for Warriors, and a sign of, you know, things to come. We wanted Panatom to get active, J-Mac, and he did.
Yeah, we also wanted Rongu to actually ult. I was kind of joking saying I hope he doesn't need to, but that was a case where he kind of needed to.
Yep.
Maybe throw the ult there, Rongu, you bail Adapting out, you pull him back to safety with your team, and maybe we don't end up with a kill for the Oni Warriors, which have been able to at least stem the bleeding of the Leviathans. It was that 1,500 gold earlier, hasn't been able to climb much because of this slower pacing that's been taken. Zot's lost the tower. There's really no reason for Adapting to come back to this right side. Fine, okay, can rotate out faster, already has his upgraded teleport maxed out so he can get to these other fights much quicker. But the Leviathans need to do something with that lead. This is a great start.
Yeah, the back from SOT at the same time. You can see the aggression here. Another pause coming out from Adapting, though, as Panatom did get aggressive against Rongu. We'll take a moment to work out exactly what's going on there between the two. But obviously, that SOT back is going to open the window. And you were right. There's no reason to see the Leviathans prioritize the solo side, especially if the Pyromancer is taken away there, J-Mac, because there's nothing really for them to farm at this stage of the game. I mean, what, we're about 15 minutes in, tops. There's no way the FG is going to get pulled off that, so you can start looking for the pressure on this Gold Fury. So far, though, Zatman not really said his name too much in this game. He's just been quietly farming and not really been pressured too much.
I always wonder if that's a good or a bad thing. If you're not saying Zatman's name for like the first 20 minutes, is that good or is that bad? I'd say, at least for the history's indication of the Leviathans, that's a good thing because it means he's not being camped.
Correct.
He's not trying to get over-aggressive because we know that Zatman is not the one to be diving into enemy backlines or trying to 1v1 the enemy carry in the first half of the game. He's waiting until that level 20. He's waiting for that first objective fight or objective rotation before he really comes online. So not having said his name doesn't leave really any worries for fans of the Leviathans. It's once we start seeing those rotations out. We saw it last game, the double kill he got after not having his name said for 20 minutes, comes up to enemy speed buff on the back end, picks up a double. We got no worries for Zatman this early on.
Well, there's the Oni Warriors on your screen right now, and they're having a pretty good series so far and a pretty comfortable team. Surprised how quickly this team has started to gel, specifically the kickoff tournament. They did very well at, and then this is their opening set so far. Game one, I thought they were really looked comfortable on camera. They were just, it seemed all calm. I spoke to them between game one and game two. I was like, you guys seem like you were chilling. And they were like, actually, we were kind of shaking. They were a little bit nervous about the whole state of affairs, but it didn't show.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of new game woes, or at least new team woes for the Oni Warriors. They're still taking time to get used to each other. They're still trying to figure out who's going to be that shot caller, who's going to be that carry for their team. Coming back for their first competitive game as well after an extended break. Getting a little bit of those first game jitters, but it seems they're at least calming down a little bit now.
So unfortunately, it does appear we've got a bit of a technical issue. Shocking. I'm on air. What a perfect time for me to apologize again with my English accent. We're going to take a quick break, and I'll say quick because I'll come back and inform you if it takes longer. But it should be a couple of minutes, and we'll be bringing you more of the action from this third game. Back after the break. And welcome back to the game. We're going straight in because we don't want to waste your time or ours at the same time. But the good news is we just saw a kiss connect onto Rongu, and he will slip the noose, but will adapting, who's chased through the jungle. Awesome Jake does find a stun on Rongu, who's knocked in the air. SOT finds a drive and strike, and Paniton right behind him. He'll get back to the tower, relieve the pressure as long as Fine OK is okay. And I'll give you all a quick update on the state of affairs. Fine OK will get away back to the safety. 3-1 in favor of Leviathans, 13.5 minutes in, and about a 2k gold lead, but a Pyromancer under threat, J-Mac.
Oni Warriors going to start it up, but Final Can Adapting still nearby. Steal potential, because Adapting has that Typhoon, but it's mostly a bait from the Warriors to find a pick if possible. Final K steps up, and this should be the call now for the Leviathans to collapse in.
Yeah, they're kind of juggling the mana all around there. Final K kind of thrown about, and in doing so, reduce the amount of damage the Warriors could put out from Merlin on that Pagon in mid lane. Pyro, though, pressure has been released, and now we're back towards mid. Keep an eye on Jake, though. He's going to be aggressive all game long, not only because he's great CC and setup for his team, but getting those prophetic stacks online takes a bit of time these days.
But Jake is doing a pretty good job about stacking those ones up. Already at 14, halfway through his stacks at 14 minutes. Not the easiest task to do as support, but...
See, the problem with that, though, J-Mac, like, the bait of that as a prophetic cloak thing is how many stacks are magical and physical, because sometimes it's harder to find the opposite when it depends on the team you're against. So, for example, Mages this time, he's only really going to get it off Kepri. If Shinto's in range, Shinto's dead. Is kind of the case there. The physical's a little bit easier, I guess, but you're kind of looking at Vamana, because he was not going to let you near it.
I would probably wager a 10-5 split, 10 to the magic, 5 to the physical, because he's been going on to wrong you most often, a couple shots to Final Can Adapting, but Pyromancer for the Warriors, they baited it earlier, but they'll be able to pick it up this time around for themselves. That's going to stem the bleeding a little bit, because the Leviathans had starting to climb just a little out of control in the goal, and that was only with the few kills they'd had to their name, but with so many objectives still on the map to go for, Gold Fury is an option for Leviathans to claim a little bit more of that gold back for themselves. Oni Warriors, that still is an option for them to jump back in as well.
Yeah, now looking at the builds coming through, you see both Hunters just returning from base. A bit more crit online for both of them now as well. Execution already picked up by Zapman, and a Demon Blade alongside it. And the same can be said for Netroid, who has the Boomerang too. So at the same time, we'll see how this plays out, because the next objective to look at for both teams will be this Gold Fury, and look at the war coverage Leviathans have. This dual lane is fully warded, and Netroid does not know there's a trap there until he gets pulled on him by Adapting. The Tornado will connect too. The damage is good, but it's not enough for a kill, and reinforcements have arrived. Zapman now under pressure here too. Gets an Aegis off to avoid some of the flame damage too. Dashed it up, but SOT was waiting around the corner. Fine OK though, did pick up the tail end of Netroid. The ultimate out from Rongu to keep Zap alive was good, but in the end he still ends up falling because it wears off. Fine OK now looking for the damage deals in the backside, specifically Paniton. Low on mana, but a driving strike from SOT will separate Shinto alone. Pagon was left alone. He'll at least take out Wrong You. Shinto is going to fall too. The mid laners both die to the jungle and tank combos from the other side. Now it's Fine OK.
This is the most awkward battle on two fronts that we have seen so far. It's a 3-stack on the top for the Leviathans to kill the Warriors, and a 3-stack for the Leviathans to kill on the opposite end as well.
Yep, no one's dying though between those two tanks on that side, especially when it's a Vamana against a Hercules and a Horus. A little bit too much, but a crazy endeavor around that left-hand side. And it all started with Leviathans, 3 members strong, finding Netroid in the jungle thanks to the ward coverage they have around that area. But the good news is, you know, no harm, no foul, I guess, as the Gold Fury still stands for either side to take.
Good news for the Warriors. Still 4 sets of beads after all of that fighting that happened on the left side. Meanwhile, for Leviathans, there's nothing up. It's 10 seconds until Final K gets his teleport back, so he can try and join the fray, but when your next closest relic for a carry is 90 seconds on a set of purification beads, I don't think the Leviathans are going to step up to Oni Warriors anytime soon. Oni Warriors, if they want to start this Fury, they can force the Leviathan's hand and do so.
They could, but who's got the best damage or secure, I guess, between the two? I mean, in terms of consistency, I feel like Warriors' composition is pretty good at shredding that, but then Kernanos is also pretty good too.
I'm looking at the Oni Warriors with the Runic Bomb in pocket. That's probably the best secure on the map right now. The Shred will go to the Oni Warriors when you've got 2 sets, or you got 2 items of crit for the Hunter Netroid, and you've got a Merlin who's always been known as that mage for shredding through objectives. probably advantage towards the Warriors in at least the burn down and then the objective secure because of that bomb.
Wrong U's having a bit of a tough time, it seems. He's gone for that Magi's shield a little bit, Magi's cloak a little bit early so far this game. Will be useful to prevent some of these CC chains that are coming his way, which not only necessarily gets him in trouble, but it also prevents him from being able to use his ultimate or his abilities defensively to help out his team. Jake and Netroid a little bit far forward here. Netroid level 17 to the 16 of Zapman, who's clearing out wards at the moment and will get back for the farm. But in doing so, he gets ulted by Netroid. Netroid still trying to follow up with the extra damage, but the body blocks do prevent some of that. Meanwhile, in the jungle, keep an eye on this. It's the blink in from Fine OK. Looks towards the carries. The ult from Zap didn't really find the target it was after in Netroid. But look at the trap in the jungle. Panitom and Pagan were waiting. They looked to try and pick off Adapting, and Adapting is bursted before he could even escape. His beads were on cooldown, and Jake, meanwhile, very low, but he is still alive.
So Panatom, still beads available for the Warriors. They can keep this fight going. Fine OK's got ultimate, but it's a dive back in for the Warriors.
Yeah, the shield came up. The Kepri ultimate doing great work, though, and it will revive Fine OK. Allows him to stay in the fray, but the thing is, it was only really killing Jake, who is a support, so it wasn't that big of a deal. In the end, so far, I'd say Warriors have kind of won this one for the moment, mainly because it was a jungle for a support, unless the Gold Fury gets done by Leviathans here, which it could well be.
It goes back to the conversation we had just a couple of minutes ago where Leviathans didn't have any relics up. Adapting was 6 seconds away from his beads coming back up when he ran into Panatom and Pagon. By the time it did come back, it was already down, and it sets up for Leviathans on Gold Fury to sneak that one away from the Warriors, who all went back to base during that time.
Oh, that was a bad time, and Shinto will have survived the Earthbreaker. I don't think it found the home anyway, but the ultimate out from Shinto just to try and secure the safety net of the CC immunity. Gold Fury to Leviathans, though, extends their lead a little bit more, and I really do mean a little bit. The Pyromancer is next on the cards by the looks of it. Only Warriors foregoing mid-lane pressure to go straight barrel into this Pyro. Fine OK is on scene first. Adapting will be on the way soon, but will they be there in time?
Pyromancer, unless Fine OK can find it with the Umbrella Ring immediately after the Bladed Umbrella to steal. No, he will not. That goes to the Oni Warriors, so another Runic Bomb to replace the one that Jake used on the Tier 1 tower of all things. Not the most common place to drop that, but guarantees you with as low as it was to at least get a little bit of extra gold in pocket. Sets up for pressure, forces the Leviathans to have to deal with that minion wave to move in. Unfortunately for Final K, not really building into a lot of damage, so steal potential low when you're going against this Warriors squad, but not impossible.
Definitely a scrappy game, this third one, though, between the two. A lot of fights, 4v4s, 5v5 starting to develop. And you can see that the fact that we've not got such a squishy lineup from the Warriors this time, they are given a bit more as good as they can get and stayed in the fray a little bit longer instead of playing more defensively and playing the bravely run away game than we saw in the last two games.
You got a lot of sustain for the Oni Warriors between Netroid's lifesteal and then Jake and SOT. They can stay in these fights, specifically the latter of those ones, a little bit longer than last time where Jake was on the Maui. His only help was the fact that he was just a tanky guardian, didn't take a lot of damage. Now you've got your own sustain, you can go back, keep your teammates alive, SOT, until more anti-heal gets built up. Not a whole lot that the Leviathans can do up against that once SOT does join the fray, but he's still level 18, hasn't hit that 20, doesn't have that sigil online, which is when the real defensive power spike comes for Sod.
Well, with Tier 1 towers being down for both sides across different portions, now the map becomes a little bit more imbalanced of who has pressure where. You can also see that Cloak has been upgraded to the Glyph for Wrong U this time round. That will help out his team in clutch moments at times. If he can find the right avenue to, get CC'd and give a bit of a buff to his teammates, it will come in handy. How do you feel about this Brilliance, what is it called? The Radiance?
Bracer of Radiance.
Bracer of Radiance. Brilliance of Radiance. Why am I saying it like that?
The
Bracer of Radiance. How do you feel about that pickup? It's very interesting to me to see that second one. Is it because of the upgraded to Bracer of Brilliance?
Yeah, it's mostly because of the upgrade too. I mean, 15% power, 20% movement speed whenever you drop that for an 8-second duration. You drop that around Fire Giant, you drop it around Gold. You don't have to go for your all-in commit. It's essentially a sitting frenzy in a sense of you get that power boost to try and go for these objectives, but you don't have to commit. Frenzy means fight, or frenzy means, we got to go for this. Where Bracer, you can sit there, bide your time a little bit more.
I guess it means you want to fight here.
We want to fight here, but we don't need to fight now. Plus, it's also a nice little ward. So if they drop something down, you can go over, knock it out as if it were a sentry ward. And if yours does get knocked out, you get a little bit of extra cooldown towards the relic. So it's a great third ward, at least, that the Oni Warriors can drop out.
Well, ward coverage for the Leviathans around the FG has begun. They're relatively decent across the way, just to cover all the avenues and try and find a pick in the jungle. They'll strip away the blue buff at the moment as they fall back towards the FG. Zatman at level 20 now has Deathbringer online. And with it being on this right-hand side, if they actually see Ishtar on the left, they could look to try and pull this if they wanted to. But maybe it's a pick they're after first. SOT, a little bit out of position there. Final-K will give chase. The rest of his team are slowly barreling down to this right-hand side too. They're a little bit slow on getting there with that Dragon Strike down. Maybe SOT runs into trouble though, but does fine okay as he gets hit by a bit of damage from that Blizzard out from Pagon. Jake and Paniton now rotating round the back. And the dance of the Fire Giant begins here as the chase is on. Blinking for Paniton, he'll find a kiss on fine okay.
Okay, taunted back, pulled back as well. He has to go over to the ultimate to get away, but the Kefir Revive will bring him back to life.
But it doesn't protect Zatman, who's lost half his health, and Paniton senses blood. He's looking for one of the carries in the back, pulling from the Earthbreak is good from SOT to fine okay. Pagon with the kill, the Arcane pull hits wrong you. Jake credited for the kill, and the chase is on as Paniton looks for Shinto and Zap. Earthbreaker doesn't find a home. The stun from Shinto prevents Paniton's chase. Zapman's still alive too. Adapting tries to dissuade them from continuing the chase, but Shinto's in no man's land, and now he's dead too. Adapting back behind the tier 2. Zapman safe, but Oni Warriors come up with 3 kills in a skirmish 5-on-5.
Scattered communications for the Leviathans. I mean, they had the advantage to push into the fight, but the pulls from Hercules, I mean, this is what I was calling for the Warriors to fan away from Final K. Don't let him have it again. Instead, the Leviathans choose to not pick up this Hercules, so SOT can do exactly what Final K did in game number 2, which is, I'm going to walk up, I'm going to pull one of your teammates to me, we're going to kill that person. If we don't, in the case of a revive to Final K, doesn't matter, I'm going to walk up and do it again because those cooldowns are so low.
Got a bit aggressive in the jungle here. He's going to run for his life now, but he will escape Adaption and Zapman, who don't give chase. Probably a little bit worried about reinforcements coming through. Take into account Horus can always ult across to support his team. The Warriors are starting to siege down these tier 2 towers if they can. Stun on to fine okay, and the knock up too. His health bar is bursted down by the damage from a Merlin and Ishtar. Tier 2 now falls, and Oni Warriors march for the Phoenix.
The Oni Warriors have that same level of dominance from game 1, but with a traditional composition. This is what happens when you can have somebody like SOT walking up and zoning.
Paniton jumps in, looks for kisses, won't find them. Oni Warriors fall back, heading towards the left-hand side for the tier 2 tower now being pinged down. They're zoning away Leviathans from this left-hand side. And you are right, the Hercules is causing them problems here, J-Mac. But they did as much as they could in the early game to put him down. They camped him consistently.
Well, they certainly tried. Ultimate in from
Okay,
Jake.
boys.
No minions, just an aggressive play to wrong you.
He's going to get bursted before he can get his ultimate off on himself there. The CC chain too much. Pagon credit with a kill. Phoenix now falls in the left-hand side. And they saw that coming, Leviathans, but they didn't respect it. And to be honest, neither did I at first until I saw how much damage they just did.
We didn't see a minion wave with them, so it was an awkward call to begin with trying to dive in, but second Runic Bomb in pocket, one use from the mid lane Phoenix, one held on to make that dive to the left lane possible. Awesome Jake tripping us out, tripping the Leviathans as well, just kind of caught unaware of maybe the intentions of the Oni Warriors. Typically when a Horus is in the middle of a lane, no minion wave around, that's okay, they're just gonna ult, go to the objective, take the Gold Fury, move out.
SOT is going to be a little bit careful here. Unfortunately, Final K can't find a knock-up to slow him down and give Adapting a window in. Instead, he's now going to meet Paniton as the two trade for a moment. Neither realizes anything's going to happen there, so they'll fall back to respective sides. But all this tail of the tape, the imbalance in now where Leviathans led for the first 15 minutes, changed at that FG fight where that 5-on-5 where 3 kills go the way of the Oni Warriors. And all of a sudden, they get an FG, they take 2 Phoenixes, and Leviathans have to defend. A tricky task under the circumstances. How is their defense when you've got 2 Phoenixes down, DJ Mac?
It almost comes down to you don't even try and defend the Phoenixes. You don't have the best traditional defense with a mage. Instead, you have a Merlin against you. Tiamat not great at really keeping those minions at bay. Has to expend too many of her tools to do so. Zapman not the best either. So because you don't have the best defense at base, you want to try and do it at Fire Giant, but the Oni Warriors aren't even giving them that chance to do so.
Phoenix is 75% fine. Okay, trying to frontline, gets an ult for himself and from Wrong You. The ultimate will revive him, but the front line is kind of out of the fray now for the time being. And Awesome Jake is going in with SOT. Phoenix falls on the right-hand side. Final K gets back to base, as does Wrong You. They don't have any minions, though, Warriors here. If you notice what Leviathans did, they did at least push out left and mid substantially enough that the fire minions didn't push down the lane in time. And if they can find a pick here, Leviathans, it could pay off, but they've got to be careful because the Warriors were waiting in the rings. Focus towards Fino K here from Jake. Longu opens the door and says, Fino, come in. And Fino doesn't get an opportunity because the door slammed in his face.
There's no revive this time, but Final K doesn't need. He's able to get out. Netroid just misses out on the stun, and the Leviathans can bank on the fact that they're able to live through that only by the good grace of the Oni Warriors, not getting that CC chain locked down on Final K. One more stun, one more route to connect. Maybe even Netroid's ultimate could have been enough to take out Final K, but now that he's got that second magic defense, it's a little easier to stay alive.
Look at Final K once more. Good damage towards Final, forcing him back, and Final no ultimate for a few more seconds here. This is only Warriors buying time for minions, but more importantly, I guess under the circumstances, buying time for that FG to respawn once more. And it more than likely should be an EFG if they play this well. Wait for the EFG and end the game.
Shinto grabbed by Panatom. Pagon along there to provide the damage with it, but I mean, Hindu, this comes down to what we talked about earlier. Sure, you're shutting down Sai. You're doing great on the Leviathans. You're keeping Sai at bay, but they're not doing anything with it. My concern was the Oni Warriors weren't capitalizing elsewhere on the map. They weren't putting pressure on Zap. They weren't putting much pressure on Wrong You. But that was in the lane. Instead, what the Oni Warriors did to adapt that is, well, if we can't kill Zapman because Wrong You's over there, why don't we just force Wrong You away from Zapman and everybody else and find picks on this Kepri? Because of that, I don't understand what the Oni Warriors are doing, just standing around here dancing in the Fire Giant pit, but
EFG,
more power to them.
EFG. They're waiting for the 30 minutes, you know? They're going to get the EFG to make
a long
it easier
time to
for
wait.
themselves.
That's
It
fair.
is. It's one of those things where you're like, well, I mean, there's a risk involved, but it doesn't look like the Leviathans are going to fall for the potential issue of going in there. I think you could have sent one man though and gone, you know what, if you're going to leave it that low, maybe we can steal it away with a Susanable over the wall, you know? At this stage, two Phoenixes have now respawned. Fire minions are pushed out on the left-hand side at least, but there is another fire wave down. All those pings that you just see on the map is like, go clear the jungle. That's what that means.
Yeah, knock out the jungle, get any last-minute buffs that we may need to go for our final siege. At least says the Oni Warriors, with Primal Fury coming back up. Should it be necessary if they need to go for another Fire Giant? They've got more than enough damage and likely can end on the siege. You have two Phoenixes back, yes, but they're weakened Phoenixes.
Oh, yeah.
They're probably not even going to get up to 50% HP by the time the Warriors march up there, especially with what they're going to do with what Jake's been doing this whole time. He's just ulting for the sake of ulting. He's not bringing minion waves. He's not doing it to go for a fight. It is just, we're going to dive in, you're going to be forced back, and we're going to take your birds.
Leviathans need a pick, and they need one now. They just need a prime target. SOT, a hard task to bring down. They send Fine OK to deal with it, adapting and Shinto rotating in to try and stop SOT, but it opens the door on the left-hand side for Netroid and that left-hand Phoenix. Fine OK gets very low again as Merlin supports with the Flames of Doom to bring him down, and now Shinto working for a great rest from Wrong You to keep him alive. It's too little too late, and he won't stand tall. Awesome Jake going to use the up-down here. And the Oni Warriors were forced to battle today against Leviathans, but they still find the 2-1 victory over the Leviathans. Oni Warriors still undefeated so far in Season 10.